with leaders is here.
Where are you? I can't see you. Hi, Scott.
Oh, there you are. Hey, Aaron, how are you doing?
You know what? It gets funnier every week.
It's starting to be my favorite part of it.
No, I really do enjoy it. How you been?
Good. I got some vintage booze here. I'll explain later. But how are you doing?
Hey, I've got my water, so you're in a better position than me.
That's right.
Some vintage booze. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it connects to one of our guests.
So we have a pretty exciting announcement today. I've got to play this little video first before we announce it. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's really exciting. That's the video.
Whoa.
I know, right? Pretty exciting thing. First of all, I want to say hi to everybody watching us. Let us know you're on here, because what if we make this big announcement and nobody is on here watching? Let us know if you're watching live and who you're the most excited to see today. So say hello to us, because we want to start getting your questions in so we can ask everyone. I know we're going to have a lot of questions today, but do you want to make the big announcement? What is different about today's show than ever before?
It is sponsored by Bank of Blue Valley and CEO Wendy Reynolds. And we did this during COVID as a way to connect people when they're all hanging out inside. And go figure, this is a way to connect people. And I couldn't think of a better partner than Bank of Blue Valley. And a lot of people don't realize they're one of the largest banks in Kansas City, really helping companies continue to progress and move forward. So super excited, and obviously a really big fan of the CEO, Wendy.
Absolutely. So thank you, Bank of Blue Valley. You guys will see their amazing logo here. Wendy's going to co-host in a few weeks with me. Scott's letting us have an all-female show, and it was his idea. I didn't kick him off. So essentially, we're really excited, and hopefully you guys are finding value out of this too. So, all right, let's get our panel on here. Nobody cares about us.
That's right.
All right, you going to play the music?
Oh my gosh. And do I have a good one?
Oh. Have you ever heard of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band?
Yes, that's right.
That was our first guest, first concert ever. She was hoping we had heard of them. Miss Decemeber Brammer. Hello. Our second guest is one of my favorite people in the entire world, but we did tell him there's a time limit on his talk, and she did. If you know it all, you know why. Mr. Carlos Gomez. Hi, Carlos.
Hello.
And last but definitely not least, and this might explain your booze, we have Mr. Andy Rieger. Drink of it. Chug it.
I actually drank all of it a long time ago, but I keep it because Andy gave it to me when both of our first kids were born, and I almost dropped it in the newborn area, which was kind of scary. But I've always kept it because he now has a different bottle, which I'm sure you can explain later why I put that together. But I always show this off when people come over because it's a vintage bottle. So I'm really proud of it.
I like that you showed up to the hospital with booze.
I don't know how he had it.
Why were we not friends when I was having my babies?
We've been the most popular gifts of any people giving gifts to their nurses. And so our second kid, we had nurses come in saying, "We've heard rumors that your first kid, you gave away a bunch of bottles of booze. Is that going to happen again this time?"
That's
I
awesome.
love it. We need to be friends if I have any more babies. I'm done having babies, but next time I have a friend, I'm going to tell you. Maybe. So awesome. Well, let's get started. And again, if you're watching, say hello to us. Let us know you're watching and get your questions ready, because I know these are three really popular guests. So Miss Decemeber, can you kind of tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Sure. Decemeber Brammer. I am actually the owner and lead coordinator for Soireé Event Designs. We are a Kansas City wedding planning business and event planning business. And I'm happy to be here today.
We're going to get more into how you have a wedding business during COVID in a little bit, okay? How about you, Mr. Carlos Gomez?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Carlos Gomez,
and I'm the president and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City. And I also, we have a 501c3, a sister organization that I'm the director of, and that's the Greater Kansas City Hispanic Collaborative.
Amazing. And Andy Rieger, I think a couple people here have heard of you. Can you kind of tell the two people that are listening that haven't heard of you who you are and what you do?
My name's Andy Rieger. I run J. Rieger & Co. here in Kansas City. We're down in the Electric Park district of the East Bottoms. We're a distillery that was founded by my family back in 1887, and it died with Prohibition in 1920. Restarted it in 2014. We're in a beautiful historic structure trying to revitalize the neighborhood as a part of our continued efforts of growing as a company. And most recently, we were talked about a lot for all the hand sanitizer we made.
So I just have a quick question or a quick story about the hand sanitizer. So I wanted to support you as a friend the first day that you guys were selling the hand sanitizer. So I drove downtown to get hand sanitizer, and then the streets were blocked off. And I thought that there must have been the worst crime ever, how many police were blocking off that street. So then I drove all the way around, right? And then waited in this line. I'm like, there must be something bad going on over there. And then finally I got up there, and this lady I had to roll down, and she said, you're going to have to come back tomorrow. We'll have a new group. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to go get hand sanitizer. She's like, I'm talking about the hand sanitizer. So yeah, I think a couple people heard of it. I thought I was being so supportive.
We appreciate it.
Actually, Andy made it on a previous show. You told that story on one of our first shows that you couldn't even get hand sanitizer because that was a topic, was how do you get hand sanitizer?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Right in 2020, when a topic is how do you get hand sanitizer?
Yeah.
So let's get to you, Decemeber. So speaking of COVID, you have a wedding, and this was kind of your year. You were really going to start to grow. You were talking about maybe hiring and expanding your wedding business, and then COVID hits. Can you kind of talk about what that was like, and also some of the wins that you found during it? Because I know that you've stayed super positive when a lot of people in your industry have had a tough time staying as positive.
Right. I mean, as you can imagine, and everyone knows, the event industry has been hit one of the hardest, and maybe not one of the most recognized areas that have been hit by COVID. So for me, obviously, as someone decides to take me on and bring me along with their planning experience, I become very close with them and build those relationships with all my couples, which is super important to me. And so right when the beginning of COVID hit, as you can imagine, I'm the first phone call that anybody would make when, I had a couple weddings right at the beginning of the shutdown, when there was just enough information out there, but not enough. And many conversations of, well, let's have plan A, plan B, plan C. And, sometimes we would move on to D, E, and F, whatever that might be. So I think for me and for the couples that I have been honored to work with during COVID, I would say what has really turned them around and what was the key piece of having me in their planning process was just that soundboard, but also just to verify some of the information. I, of course, can't look at a crystal ball and figure out what the future was going to hold, but I could also reassure them that we were getting the most up-to-date information, not for me personally, because sometimes other people have more, my couples might have something, mother of the bride might have something more, breaking news than I had. But I think the biggest challenge and the piece of that was just making sure that they knew that no matter what, at the end of the day, they were going to get married, and that's what matters. I mean, we all want to have that big party and, that celebration, but reminding them that no matter what, we would figure out a way that they would be married. And so I think the win that has came out of COVID would be what is really popular right now, and they're labeling them as micro weddings. And so for right now, during this time, this environment that we're in, we, decrease their guest count to 40 or 50 of their closest friends and family, and throw a amazing dinner party after they've gotten married, and just, in their backyards, and just being really creative in that. And then, obviously still supporting the rest of the vendors that are part of a wedding day in the following year. So then just pushing that celebration, I kind of call it, I think I've deemed it more of a wedding celebration, not a reception, because we've already kind of done that with our micro approach, but just really, let's get you married, and then let's still support everyone else and just postpone to the following year and have a kick celebration then.
I know you've been busy. Carlos, your position really, you went all in on other people's businesses. So can you kind of talk about what you did during COVID and your big wins?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when the shutdown happened, the staff, I had them work from home. In fact, they're still working from home as we speak. But I decided, and I had to get my board approval, but they backed me up. I wanted to keep the office open. We have never closed. We have been in business Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 since day one. We thought it was important to first send to our members that, we know things are different, but hey, we're here for you. Even though we encouraged all using technology, Zoom meetings, Google Teams, Microsoft, we encouraged not meeting in person. Unfortunately, the non-members don't get our emails. So we thought that we needed to be here for the non-members because our calls ramped up tremendously, particularly from the Spanish-speaking immigrant community. So we haven't closed. We've been in business. We did something else that most people probably think we're crazy, and maybe we are, and I think I am a little bit. I went to my board and said, I want to offer a 6-month free membership to the Spanish-speaking immigrant community to help them get through COVID. And so we actually was an idea of a DACA student who called me up, who now lives in St. Louis and used to live in Kansas City. And that was his idea. So Robert, I got to thank Robert for that. And we did it. So 92 small businesses signed up, and we've been doing one-on-one consultations with them, educating them on PPP, EIDL loans if they qualify, just helping them get through this. So we've had a lot of wins, and we're a firm believer that when you give, you get. And for a while there, we were so worried about all these businesses, we were forgetting about ourselves as an organization. But you know what? As we lose members, which by the way, we're not dropping anybody because of the economy, we're keeping them on. And we've had new partners step up, and both small business and corporate. And thanks to a hardworking staff, 2 hardworking boards, and a lot of passionate members. So we're going to be, oh, yes.
What do you think the conversion rate is going to be with those 92 members? Because I think that is wonderful and a great business plan, because a lot of those people and members that joined are going to re-up. And those are 92 people. Even if you convert 10, what a great, I'm surprised more people aren't copying off of you.
Well, and we've had over 10 already asked us. We're not trying to sell them a membership, and they've asked my staff, what would this cost? And we told them, and they said, well, let us know when the 6 months are up because we're going to renew. But actually, I'm surveying these new members, and I'm finding out who their banks are, and I'm going to go to their bank in about a month or two, and I'm going to say we signed up 92 members. Hey, ABC Bank, 10 of them are your bank with you. I want you to pay for a year membership for these small businesses. Most of these businesses are 5 or less employees. And so they're really, really, they're getting hit hard, and most of them don't speak English. So you got the language barrier. So we just feel that this demographic is important, and we got to take care of them because, but yeah, that's the idea. I don't want them to pay. I want their bank to pay.
I will tell you, so we are a Hispanic chamber member, Lillian James is, and Carlos called me one afternoon. You called and you said, hey, we were maybe a month in the pandemic, and he said, I hadn't had a chance to call and see if there was anything we could do for you. And I was like, we're good, but this is just amazing that we're not a big member. We're not a, big corporate member. We're just a small business member that he personally called. And I think he did that. I heard from a lot of members, he was making those calls. So very impressive.
Yeah, thank you. And we tried to have that communication, and we've really been a cheerleader because we don't have a magic wand. People call us and we don't have that, but we can tell them you're going to get through this, and we just got to work smarter and work harder.
How about you, Andy? Have you been doing anything during COVID? I feel like you're in the news all the time. Have you been doing anything during COVID? And what are your wins?
Just doing video games at home. Just not doing a lot. Actually, when COVID started, literally the very first day, before we even started hand sanitizer, I have an old Nintendo 64 that I've got 15 of the best games that if you named the best games on Nintendo 64, you would be like, I'm playing that game, and I have that game. And I had to force myself into actually pulling it out of the box. One day in late June at 5:30 p.m. with my general manager saying, I brought this box down thinking we were going to have a lot of free time, and we are going to stay for 30 minutes to an hour, and we're going to play some games of Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey. So anyway, needless to say, a little bit has been going on for us. We've been a little bit busier than I would have thought. Doesn't mean we've been more busy on the revenue side necessarily, but we just really wanted to fight like hell when all this began and try to ensure that we could really figure out the path to which Jay Rieger and Co. first survives, but second thrives. And thriving in times of COVID isn't necessarily an immediate return. And so a lot of the things that we really tried to figure out were, hand sanitizer aside, what are the things we can do today in a weird environment to where we can improve ourselves for whenever this weird environment comes to a close. And, that involved on the sales team really trying to reformulate what they all did on a day-to-day basis, because you were no longer selling. You were just fostering relationships and really focusing on that element of not trying to ask for any form of a sale, but just letting them know you're here and, hanging out with buyers of liquor stores and hanging out with the restaurants that were doing to-go orders and, just the little things that are just like the friendship relationship mentality. On the retail side, you no longer are allowed to just open. You have to do things. You have to encourage people to want to come down and want to, when they get out of the house, want to actually come to the facility and do something. And so whether it was bottled cocktails, which are now a mainstream type thing that we do, that'll be around forever. We figured out how to do outdoor activities by taking over our entire parking lot. We had this thing on every Saturday of June and July called Parking Lot Provisions, where we brought down 12 to 14 other companies, and they all set up tents, and we basically created an outdoor market. And we would have hundreds of people, if not some weekends we got thousands of people that would come down just to be able to either drive through or be able to get a bunch of things all in one place. Online event booking, where no longer are you forced to deal with another person. Instead, you can just pick and curate your events online. The way we sort of changed up reservations, we changed up private tours and how that's done and booked. So a lot of little more or less streamlining type mentalities. On Fridays, we now have a supper club in our Hey Hey Club in the basement, and there's live music, and it's a 4-course paired dinner with cocktails. So the idea really there was figuring out how to change things up in the current times in order to try to capture some form of that original revenue on the retail side, but also doing things in a way that elevate the experience so that when we come out of COVID, we have potentially a handful of other streams of revenue that we can overlap with just standard openings and being a traditional, typical type retail place when people want to come visit our manufacturing facility. So I would say that, being busy is probably a little bit of an understatement, but really trying to not feel sorry for ourselves and really trying to be innovative. And those are the things that exist there, but we've really put together a really fantastic growth plan that we're going through financing discussions on, and really trying to take advantage of a lot of the labor that we have that we don't really want to release into the unemployment market, but instead utilizing it as if we're a bit of a startup and really starting new business lines and new products and new offerings altogether as a company that you can take that, what would most of the times be considered dead labor, and you'd release it into the unemployment pool, and instead reallocating it to formulating assistance on startup efforts of what will eventually be new long-term streams of revenue. So it's just been an interesting time overall, a lot of reflection, both on the company side, on the self side. We got to see a lot of what our city holds during this period. It's been fascinating to watch how humans interact when they're standing in line for hand sanitizer, and some people love and some people hate. And never cried more in my entire life than I did the first 4 weeks of this period. But overall, I would say that we're going to come out a lot stronger than we came in, and really proud of everybody around us. And it's been a heck of a ride.
So a little segue to talk about Decemeber's business. When I was talking to your events team, by the way, are awesome. They literally respond within the hour, on the hour, morning, night, or weekend. I was shocked to hear about the number of events that you were doing. A lot of people don't realize you have an investment banking background prior to you launching the company. Were your wheels turning a little bit when Decemeber was talking about micro celebrations, and how has that played a role in your business where people are gathering, but they're just gathering in smaller communities?
Yeah, our first year was last year. We opened in July of 2019, and in the fourth quarter, we hosted over 200 private events between our spaces. And so we just really tried to make sure we did a good job with what we were offering as the final product. And that really carried through during COVID, I would say, because we're really seeing a lot of the corporate events. Obviously, lots of weddings have been completely delayed or just completely reformatted overall. I mean, we had one where, this shows a little bit of the nature of people. We had one where they were planning their rehearsal dinner at our facility, and they ended up changing it up altogether and wanting to do the entire thing in Colorado with just 10 people in their family. And, they told us that they wanted us to keep the deposit because they wanted to make sure we were around when all this ended, and they didn't want it back. And, it was a really, really nice thing. And, it's those little bits and pieces that brought us to tears. But instead, so what we do is we sent them to Colorado with, 7 or 8 cases of booze and pre-made cocktails. And so they were blown away, so happy. And, it's those little things that we feel are a bit of that karma stream. But, on the micro side, I think that that's something that we've seen a lot of, that where people are taking the places of corporations for the rest of 2020, where corporations have said, this isn't the year to do private events. We've got a lot of companies that we're going to be repeating with us in the fourth quarter for their holiday party and just say, can we simply just move to 2021 from 2020? And it's a pretty standard response that we've gotten overall. But seeing the micro side, lots more birthday parties, lots more just friends getting together, lots more of those where people are finding an excuse to say, in order to get my friends together, I have to make something official. We can't just say, let's meet at a bar anymore and have a drink. It's during this time period, I've rented this room. It's just us. There's going to be food and drinks. I'm only allowing 14 people to come. I want you to be one of the 14 people so we can have a good time and get a little sense of normalcy. And I think that that's been something that's been really popular. And the same thing goes with, and speaking of micro, we changed up our tours overall so that they're all private tours. You're never with people on our tours anymore of our production facility with people you don't know. It has to be people that are in your quote group. So when you book a tour, you are paying for the entire tour. And it's just those little changes that, it's truly the sign of the times, and we hope we get back to normal pretty soon, but we're prepared to be here for a while.
So one of the things, first of all, I want to let you know, start asking your questions over in the comments so we can make sure we get to them. But one of the things, so Decemeber, how old is your oldest?
He'll be 4 in October.
So Decemeber has 2 under 4. She has a business, and then on top of that, she was sitting on the junior league board this year in charge of fund development. So all their big events, right? So she has a lot on her plate. So can you kind of speak to how you have been able to balance everything during this? Because I've got kids, but they're older, so it's a little bit easier. We've got 3 people on here that have tiny kids. Can you speak to a little bit of like balance and how you've been able to do that all while running your business?
Yeah, sure. I think first of all, it's just deciding what your personal out is. And when I say out, like, what is that release? What is that thing that's going to bring you back to that maybe normalcy level, just a glimmer of what it was before? And so for me, it's just figuring out what that was. And when those times were tough, or when I had to push through because I didn't have an option, with all of the things on my plate, and still wanting to be a good mom and a good wife and all of those things. And was just finding maybe that 20, 30 minutes to myself of doing something that I enjoyed pre-COVID that kind of brought me back to that level playing ground mentally. And then I'm a lover of Post-its. So I'd be lying if I didn't say that I have Post-its all over the place with all of my reminders of what I needed to do. And I kind of did lose track of that. And then I think thanks to COVID, it brought me back to my Post-it obsession. And so now my desk is covered in Post-its at home, but because all of the things are going and happening, and that was my way of like tracking what I needed to get done. So I think for me, being able to still, wear all those different hats at different times and still appear to be sane, because not all the time, like obviously everybody they close the door and like Andrew mentioned, like you cry, you do whatever you need to do. But I think for me, it was just figuring out what that piece was that would bring me back down to where I needed to be mentally.
Fun fact, I used to work at a company where it was a fireable offense to use Post-its.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
What? Where was that and why?
It was a real estate company. We're on LinkedIn so people can see. But apparently the owner was just hated Post-its. And like, he had owned it for years. By this time, he didn't have anything to do with it. But it was written very early on that it was a fireable offense to use Post-its. So I have never been a Post-it user because that was like my first big girl job.
Wow.
I'd be gone.
I know, maybe I should take it up. I'm thinking about this. Carlos, I want to circle back around. So a couple things here. So Carlos and I became close when I sat on the Hispanic Chamber Board. And one of the things I got asked, I think every day, is, I didn't realize you were Hispanic. And I was like, I'm not. They still let me sit on the board. So I want you to kind of talk about like your membership and how, although you guys have a niche, what the membership actually looks like. And then also, just for a fun fact, you don't speak Spanish yourself. So can you kind of talk about how you balance the communication when you went all in on people that speak mainly Spanish?
Yes. Well, by the third generation, no matter where you come from to this country, you lose your native tongue. I'm the third generation. Here you go. And so my parents are bilingual, and my grandparents, only one spoke English. So my staff, you surround yourself with people who have strengths with your opportunities. So my staff is all bilingual. And but I think the biggest misconception is people join our chamber. We're here to help the Hispanic business community, but we have 35% of our membership, and someone's ringing my doorbell. Sorry about that. Live. This is live. 35% of our membership is non-Hispanic. So why does a non-Hispanic firm, whether it's a small business or corporate, join us? First of all, business is business, regardless of who you are and what language you speak. The DNA of an entrepreneur is the same. And so they're that person who wants to take a risk, who's willing to take a risk, and has a vision. But usually people join our chamber because of the growth of the Hispanic community. Hispanics this year will spend $1.7 trillion in the United States. Every year that's growing, the Hispanic population's growing. There's not one purchasing index that's flat or negative with Hispanics. December, I was thinking about we have big weddings. I don't know if we can make it down to 40 people. One of my cousins, he had 55 in his wedding party. And so we like to do things big, but we spend. We're a cash-based society, and we're growing. And so that's why corporate America joins us. That's why small business joins us.
Perfect. Okay. You didn't get your bell.
Yeah, hold on. I'll go get it.
We should bring him into. We should.
Yeah, just put him on.
Interview. It's like the teacher when your cell phone calls you.
Andy, obviously, all of your like pivots. I'm starting to hate that word so much. All of your pivots were really impressive. But what I found even more impressive were the partnerships you made. And I think just from kind of knowing you, I knew some of those were friendships turned partnerships. But you were able to really lift other businesses up. Can you kind of talk about that thought process, and if that was a thought process or if it just ended up working out, but bringing everyone along with you?
We have the most tenured staff that this organization has ever had in a 43-year history. So with the tenured staff comes relationships. I've been in this position over 13 years. The Kansas City Hispanic Chamber is the founding chamber of the National Hispanic Chamber in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So there's over 200 Hispanic chambers across the country, and we're the 8th oldest out of that 200. So I utilize that history to build those relationships up. So we actually help our members, both big and small, connect across the country. We've helped large companies in Nashville connect with the Hispanic community there. Denver, I don't want to say their names, but we had one major bank that's here. They bought a bank system in Phoenix, and we helped them and introduced them to the Hispanic business leadership in Phoenix, Arizona. We help our small businesses the same way. In fact, our focus is the small business owner. So right now we're helping a member in Las Vegas. He has a mobile sign company. He's in 26 cities. We also have helped small businesses. We get to meet a lot of supplier diversity directors, whether it's with Johnson & Johnson or Coca-Cola in Atlanta. And so we try and connect those small business owners. We try and get them certified as minority, women, veteran certified. And Aaron, we need to get you woman certified and then connect them. I think the one thing that some people don't realize, you could be a white male and benefit from the minority, women, and veteran programs that are federal across the country. There's mentorship protege opportunities where a white male majority firm can mentor a woman-owned, minority-owned firm and get up to 49% of a set-aside that they wouldn't qualify for. And so we try and help build partnerships between demographics, and everyone wins.
Andy,
one quick question. I know we're going to ask Andy that question. Why is it that I work with a lot of women-owned businesses? Why is it recently, I feel like being a there's a certification for being a small business? Do you know, why is that becoming such a popular designation to have the land and opportunity as opposed to being a women-owned business?
Well, first of all, we should promote all small business. There's plenty of business for everybody. So like the city of Kansas City, Missouri has it's called SLBE, Small Local Business Enterprise. If you are a small business in the 5 counties that make up the metro, you're considered local according to the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And as long as you get certified with them, any contract under $300,000 in your business arena only gets bid to those folks. So it leaves out the big boys and big girls. And I think then it's a good thing. And that's also it's gender neutral and race neutral. So there's a big push, small business employs more people than corporate America. So why should we not invest in local small business?
Very good touch point. Sorry, Aaron and Andy, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're okay. That was a wonderful question because I'm a small business owner. I appreciate it. Andy, I want you to answer the same question around partnerships because I was really impressed with how all of a sudden at least the hand sanitizer I saw sold everywhere, right? So can you kind of talk about what the thought process was, but lifting other businesses up as well?
Yeah, so the one that you're specifically referencing is probably with Swell Spark and working with them at all of their axe throwing locations and using that as hand sanitizer. And that was we did a handful of those around the city where we had other businesses that we worked with a lot that whether they reached out to us or we reached out to them, and you sort of saw the real negative effects of COVID, especially early on, were so devastating that no one really understood or knew what it was going to turn into and how bad it was actually going to get. And so there was a lot of that, it sounds corny to say, but that sharing mentality where you kind of want to make sure that you're picking, if you have the ability to help another brand somewhere in the city, a strategic partner, whatever it is, what is the long-term effect of that assistance that you're providing them? And does it go beyond in this instance, what would have been lost sales on our end? You're giving it up for less money so that they can make money on it. And the hope is obviously they can sell more of it so that everyone ends up winning. But really picking and choosing and saying, if we have the ability to help other businesses in the Kansas City area and help continue to keep Kansas City good by preserving what we have as a city during a time in which none of these businesses were able to actually, no one designed COVID, especially in Kansas City. So it's not fair to, in our opinion, to just watch all these other companies potentially go out of business when we have an opportunity to actually help. And that goes beyond, it shows that the community as a whole. We saw how charitable and giving our community was during this time. Typically it was with charity, but charity really goes beyond just nonprofit, and it goes to just helping everybody out in a time of need. And whether that's helping an elderly neighbor get groceries because they don't want to leave their house during COVID, or honestly, there have been so many examples across the way that whether it's our employees or our partners or anybody, truthfully, that has had some need that we are able to assist with and help with, it's our duty, more or less, as a good citizen, and that citizen being the company, to do as much as we possibly can. And really seeing what that kind of give back has become, it's nothing that you ever expect a return on. You're just doing what you know is the right thing, and so you can go down and lay your head on a pillow at night knowing that you gave it your all. And the biggest thing with your question is just finding out where you or your company can provide a little bit of assistance, and when that assistance lines up, then being able to actually execute upon it, assuming obviously that it doesn't destroy your business in the process. But just doing every little bit in piece so that we can preserve the awesome community that we have as a whole for the longest period of time possible.
As a marketing person, right? And I guess marketing PR person, could you have imagined the PR that would come along with you making hand sanitizer? Was that even on your radar when you decided to do it?
The short answer is no. I mean, we made it because we had a nursing home reach out to us, and they reached out twice. And it was the second time that it led to a real discussion internally. And it was within a week that they reached out 2 times in a row. First time was, we don't have hand sanitizer. Can you make it? There's a distillery up in Seattle making hand sanitizer. And the reason why distilleries are easy components is because high proof vodka is the base basically for hand sanitizer. And it's the active ingredient that kills the alcohol or kills the virus. And so when you think about what that meant to us, it really was an extension of a totally different product. And all these other distilleries that were doing it up in the Northeast or Northwest, they were doing it and just doing, a couple hundred 2-ounce bottles. And that read itself in the headlines as, we're looking for PR here. And it wasn't really the right way, and because they weren't making any dents in any actual problems. And what we underestimated was the fact of how much longer it was going to take the big, massive producers to come into the marketplace and ramp up their supplies that they had to get things back to a normal. So when we got the second note from that nursing home, we all sat down, and everyone on our team really wanted to do it. And that was where I just said, if we're going to do it, then we're going to just blow this out of the water. And we're going to pump out enough hand sanitizer to actually make a dent in this potential supply flaw that we're going to experience as a city. And if there's a way that we can possibly do this to a level that our city doesn't really experience negative effects of, quote, not having hand sanitizer, then we can make Kansas City get ahead of every other city in the entire country. And we got to a point where we were sending hand sanitizer to hospitals in probably about 10, 12 states, just because they couldn't even get it. And we were the only ones that figured out how to do volume at a quick level. So it was an interesting experience overall. And the PR there was never a press release. The PR was about as natural as it got. And, we're hopeful that it carries through and it really helps elevate our brand long term.
There was never that is mind blowing, because that was all Kansas City could talk about. I still have another leader, and I tell people that if you got I just make this up. I said, if you got an early batch, I hear you can drink it because it's such high quality. So is that true? If you got like one of your first hand sanitizers, could you drink it?
Technically drink all of it.
See? You heard it.
You wouldn't want to. You'd get really sick really fast, but it's technically non-toxic as it needs to be, because anything that you would put on your hands gets absorbed into your skin. And so if you are putting things that are toxic on your hands, it becomes toxic to you as a person. So technically all hand sanitizers are drinkable, just like Scope, for example, is non-toxic. You don't want to drink it, but if you really were desperate, I guess it would do.
You're such a hand sanitizer expert now. That's got to be shocking, right?
I'll add it to my resume.
Okay, I got to give a shout out right here. This is my son's best friend. He's 13, and this is his band that came together. He's the one that wrote our jingle with my son. So if you're looking for a band, they actually watch our show to learn business. So I just love
That's
that.
awesome.
So December, you kind of took a different track to business that when we first met, you were really the only person I knew that took this track. And now I've met a lot of people, and I kind of like this track better as the more entrepreneurial I look back. But you bought your business. You bought an established business when you went in. Can you kind of talk about what that decision was, why you made that decision, and the benefits of that?
Yeah, for sure. So the Soireé Event Designs had been in Kansas City, established 8 years prior to me coming on board. So I started as a contractor for the company, and the owners were looking to sell, but obviously they started it from nowhere. So they were very choosy and kind of wanted to be picky about who they were going to sell this, business to. And so they approached me, and it always had been an idea, that dream. If I could change and go do this is what I would do. It was to do some kind of event planning, be in that business and the actual planning piece of it. And so it knocked on my door. And at first, I was just engaged when that happened. And I went to Scott, my now husband, fiance at the time, and said, guess what? We're getting married this year, but I also want to buy a business. And he was like, you're crazy. Like, why would you do that? So long story short, the next day he said, okay, let's sit down with the owners. I know this is something that, you had always dreamt about, but how would you make that a reality? Which was my hesitation of being in a big city. I knew there were established companies. Like I didn't have the time at that point in my life to dedicate starting from the ground up. And so why not take the opportunity to purchase a company that is very well established and had an amazing reputation in the city and in the wedding industry itself, and then just build upon that and make it my own over time. So that's what I've done. So I bought it 1 month before I got married. As you can imagine, I do all things at one time. Just check all the boxes off the list.
Did you buy a house and have a child too?
Yep. We haven't stopped. We will be married 5 years in November, and there's something major that has taken place in every year since we've been married. But so over the course of the last 5 years, this fall of me owning the business, then I was able to tailor it, take all of what the previous owners, their hard work, everything they did to build the framework, and then now I've got to add my, flair and style to that business and carry it on, but still have that back and support of saying that the business has been around Kansas City for, X amount of years. So it worked out for me, and it is a different style. Some would say, oh, you took the easy route because you didn't start it from the ground up, but really I just took the opportunity that knocked on my door and then made it my own.
I don't know if it's the easy route. It might be the smartest route. The more that it is that I learned. Hey, Scott and Andy, fun fact, her husband's best friend is Luke Wade. So Luke Wade was in their wedding and stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, I'm dying to know about Carlos and his friend that has joined him. So, Aaron, I don't want to interrupt your line of questioning, but this is such a cool. This show's awesome.
Well, we've never had this happen before, Carlos. You're the first person, 1, to wear a mask on the show, and 2, to bring a guest with a +1 to it. So tell us all. I'm going to unmute you because you're unmuted now. I unmuted you because you guys were having a conversation.
We're like a Seinfeld episode over here. We're a show about nothing, but no. This is Carlos Vida. See, you're getting 2 Carloses for 1. And Carlos is a financial advisor in Leawood with Prevail. Another Leawood. And but he's also a motivational. He has an incredible story on how he came to this country as a teenager. Carlos, can you get the door? Yeah. Okay. And he he works for SCORE as a volunteer, and he's the only bilingual SCORE consultant in the metro. Any small businesses that need free advice, they need to call SCORE. Great organization to help your business. And he's also a motivational speaker.
Carlos, I have a question.
Anyway, so he's setting up for a show.
I hope this isn't a naive
Yes.
question, but you mentioned earlier that a lot of the Hispanic community is a cash community. So from the financial advising aspect, we think of
Yes.
traditional ways of saving and building wealth to help our families. What are some struggles, and how does Carlos Squared kind of help with that? And, as business leaders, Andy, Decemeber, Aaron, and I, when we come across something like that where people are typically all cash and they're worried about investing, how do we help them?
Yeah, well, and when I say we're a cash base, I'm referring to the growth of the Hispanic community,
Okay.
which is an immigrant community. That has been the growth in the last 5 to 8 years. Hispanics have been here for a long, long time, but the fastest growing segment is the immigrant base. There's a lot of education piece, not only with the banking industry, investing, healthcare. There's a lot of opportunities for education, and so the chamber's there to give those education. We give classes right now through technology, Zoom, in English and Spanish, and all these topics, cash flow, taxes. So there's a big need though in the financial arena. If you're an immigrant and you come to this country, you only know what you know, and in some Latin American countries, banks don't have they're not insured. So if the bank closes, you lost your money. So a lot of people come to this country, they don't believe in banks because where they come from, you can't trust your bank. So we have to do an education piece that, no, the banks here are insured. You're fine. You're not going to lose your money. And so it's challenging, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. We're helping 15 businesses right now open up. And that's always refreshing when we get someone at our door or a phone call saying, I want to open up a restaurant, or I want to open up a construction company. And in the worst economy we've ever seen, it's very, very inspiring.
So we have, hopefully you saw this. Jennifer's hoping you just keep adding people to the stream.
Yeah, I can FaceTime Jennifer right now. But Aaron, a funny comment. I hope John hears us.
I'm going to pull it up right now.
If it wasn't for John, that he was the original person asking to sponsor the show with his company, they've hired a bunch of really high-powered executives, and John's been there for a long time. And so he encouraged us to be like, hey, you could sponsor the show. So go ahead with John's comment
John.
there. I want to give John a shout out.
Yeah, so this is for you, Andy. Shout out for Andy at G. Rieger & Co. Hosted my first virtual cocktail making class last week for local clients, prospects, and it was a blast. Derek took amazing care of us, and everyone had a great time. Loved the kits, and everything was so well put together. So one, tell us about these, because that sounds like my kind of virtual event, to tell you the truth. And then the question I was going to ask you was also, Decemeber said, we talked with Decemeber about taking over a business. We talked about with Carlos, he's been there forever and been growing that. But it's a lot of pressure to say, well, we started this in 1800 and then a pandemic hits, right? And now you got to come up with that. What sort of pressure when you're a family business that old does that even put on your shoulders as well? Hold on, you're muted. It says you muted yourself. I can't undo it.
You can't read my lips.
No.
The cocktail classes came out of, part of that retail discussion and need to get creative and start coming up with new ideas. And they've been huge. And so that's been a really big corporate event. We've seen a lot of corporate events actually want to do things like that as opposed to their typical parties, whatever it would have been. And the corporations end up saving a lot of money by doing it, but it's still a way for them to interact with either their client base or their employees. You're not having happy hours for your company that are company sponsored these days. So whatever they can do to kind of keep their employees really excited that they still work there is a really big thing, or something for clients to try to get clients really excited. But what was the second question?
I just said it's a lot of pressure from the 1800s.
Yeah. Well, so we the funny thing is, in 1920 there was a different type of pandemic, one that destroyed alcohol drinking in the United States. So the business was lost then. And so you skip forward 100 years and you see this, and it's obviously it wasn't a continuously run business throughout that time period, but being able to actually look at the past and see history can't possibly repeat itself. We can't allow that to happen if we are smart and we get really active during this time period. So ultimately with us, we landed on, trying to fix whatever we could and earn whatever we could, however we could, and morph as quickly as we could and cut whatever unnecessary costs we did, just because there is that element of you don't want this to actually die down because of this pandemic that had nothing to do with us. And I'll never forget the first week of COVID being very, very real. And one day when I got home from work, my wife and I were working from 7 to 11 every single day. We hardly got to see our kid. Our nanny would bring our kid down to work. Unfortunately, she wasn't in work because of COVID, so that worked out well when his school got canceled. And I just collapsed on the ground one night and I said, we've done everything right. And this has nothing to do with any decisions that we made at our business. And we're being penalized, and there's a chance that we don't end up making it just because of something completely out of our control. And I think it was that moment to me that I realized that, you know what, even though I didn't do this and I didn't impart this on my company, maybe there's something that we can do to make a really good opportunity out of this. And we kind of just looked at it and said, that was where then, hand sanitizer really started to become a real thing or a real idea, changing everything up a little bit. But then a lot of these growth initiatives that we're going to be putting in place over the next 12 months, they were all born out of COVID. And we had the time and made the availability and the resources to be able to dedicate to ideation and trying to take the next step as a business overall and trying to morph to become even stronger when you come out of this. And just being able to sort of take a step back from the traditional day-to-day, getting into something else reopens that creative vortex more or less. So it's something that everyone on our team though was on board with, and we all we love the company that this is. We really treat everyone like family, and we provided 3 meals a day during the first 3 months of COVID to all of our staff, so they didn't have to go out. We provided a shift drink after work every single day. There was no one else in the building, so it was just our staff drinking together, socially distanced, but it alleviated the need for them to want to have that itch to go out to a bar. And while we were giving them all of these things so they didn't have to go spend money, we were also keeping them safe and keeping our business safe. And so it was just those little elements that brought everyone together even more, and couldn't be more proud of everyone that we have.
Can we talk about the slide a little bit? Yes, Carlos.
Aaron, I just want to show, look what Carlos Vidas brought in with him.
Oh, man.
This is the Latino buying power I was telling you about. He said he brought a lot of, I think, vodka from you.
That's cool.
So last time we saw each other was November, Andy, and we talked about the slide. So this was pre-COVID, and how you have the rules for the slide, but then you get on Instagram. Can you kind of talk about how you catch people without them knowing they're caught on Instagram?
In terms of breaking the rules? Well, so the slide update. So first off, the slide was designed and created because when's the last time you got to go out drinking and take a slide built for you, not your kid? And sounds funny, but people love it. It's a real thing. And we actually closed it down ever since COVID started. And this past weekend, our team got enough snarky comments from people that were upset that the slide wasn't open. Everyone understood. Everyone was like, but come on. Like, we want to do the slide. That this weekend we're going to open it back up. And we just said, it's no different than, a faucet in the bathroom or anything else. It's, before you take it, we have hand sanitizer. When you get done riding it, we have hand sanitizer at the bottom. We'll wipe it down multiple times a day. There's only so much you can do, but allowing people to have fun as adults in the middle of a global pandemic is few and far between. So let's reopen it up.
But you're not supposed to go down backwards. You're not supposed to go down a couple people. And you said you get on Instagram and see it. People tag you when they break the rules, right?
You're not supposed to take a drink down it. You are not supposed to go more than one at a time, and you are not supposed to go face first.
So backwards is fine.
I feel like that's a challenge to wash because there is hand sanitizer literally at the top of the slide in the bottom. I was just there on Tuesday for the Business Journal, and literally you could go down face first with a drink in your hand with another person. I won't do that though. But Aaron, can I ask the last question?
Yeah, I just want to tell you today's Tuesday. You were there today.
No, I was there Monday.
Oh.
So yeah, COVID days run together. We have a lot of young people that watch this show, and we have a lot of executives. It's this weird mix. It's kind of all the about. But December, I'd love for you to go first, and Carlos and Andy. What is I know you all get asked to speak in front of people like today, but what are the advice you give to young people in terms of figuring out what they want to do in business, or how they work hard, or how they become successful? So I don't know if there's some advice you have for young people on how to be successful, but what is the advice you typically give young people?
You want me to go first, Scott?
Yes.
I think for me, the biggest is to get involved in some realm of what you're interested in the line of business. Meaning if you're going to be an intern, or for my instance, like I have girls that are interested in the event industry, and they'll come on board as assistants to coordinators. So then they're there learning what we do throughout the wedding day or throughout an event day. But also they're there to soak in like, oh, these are the steps I need to take. So I think my biggest advice would be just get involved and be willing and eager to learn from someone, find a mentor, or, just put yourself out there, even if it's not a paid opportunity. But I think your eagerness will take you a long way in turn to learn, specifically if that's something that you may find out at the end that that's not something you want to do, but just that eagerness.
Carlos, what advice do you have for young people trying to be successful?
Volunteer for a not-for-profit. I'm not talking about the Hispanic Chamber, but we'll take volunteers. I got this job by volunteering, and I was involved with the fiesta in Topeka, Kansas, that got the attention of a mayor who said, Carlos, I want to appoint you to the City Planning Commission for the city of Topeka. And I said, Mayor, I don't know anything about economic development or city planning. I'm sure you can find someone more qualified. And he said, Carlos, that's the easy stuff. You'll learn that. He goes, right now I have a planning commission that's out of touch with community, and that's what you bring. You'll learn the other stuff. To his credit, I was a sponge for a year, and after that I was the voice for not only business, but for small business on that planning commission, which got the attention of the Topeka Chamber, and long and behold, here I am. So I didn't see my pathway as working for a chamber, but I know if I didn't volunteer, I would never have had this opportunity. You're going to meet great people volunteering.
Was that Kay Barnes or Sylvester?
No, this was out of Topeka, Kansas, Mayor Butch Felker.
Yep.
Yeah, I was a planning commissioner for 4 years, and I got yelled at, and my friends would say, they would watch public access television saying, how can you, that's so boring. And then we're there for 6 hours till 1 a.m. sometimes. And, but it was exciting for me. And so, also the don't be afraid to ask for help. Just pick up the phone. You see someone in your industry that's doing well, pick up the phone and call them. You'd be surprised.
We're almost close on the hour here. So Andy, what advice do you have for young people?
I always say, assuming you're 21, go have drinks with people. People are always willing to talk and share their stories and learn who you are. If you say, let's meet at a bar for a drink and I'll buy you a drink, I just want to hear your story. And that's how someone that mentioned a comment on here earlier today. That was how he got me to meet up with him. But it's something that I really took to heart, and I did a lot of when I started our business. And when I was going through our development phase, trying to figure out development, tax credits, city entities, et cetera, just meeting and drinking with other business owners and developers and lawyers And if you want the one way that you're not going to get billed to learn what's around you and understand the landscape, it's buy a cocktail for somebody. And when you buy those cocktails for people, then who knows what will get returned to you, whether it's just knowledge or they pick up the phone and feel like they want to call you and incorporate you into their world someday.
I'm going with Andy's advice. No offense, guys. Well, we appreciate you all coming on so much. What an incredible panel. Make sure you go follow all of these awesome people right here on LinkedIn. They're all on here. They're all tagged on here. And reach out and say thank you for giving us such awesome advice. We will be back here same time, same week. Look, we're getting compliments already. We always get a ton afterwards. Let us know if you watch the replay too. We like to know who watches live and who watches the replay. We will be back same time next week. Thank you to our sponsor, Bank of Blue Valley, and we'll see you. Have a great week.